r/AskReddit. Police officers of Reddit. What criminal actually impressed you with their criminal skills? A fire marshal once told me about his nemesis, a firebug naturally. Apparently the arsonist had a thing for burning old barns. Never a building that was in use. Always an old abandoned one. Anyway, his modus operandi was to take a balloon filled with accelerant like gasoline or kerosene and suspend it by a string at 20 foot plus off the ground. Under the balloon he'd light a candle and start the balloon swinging on a long arc. He'd have a good 20 plus minutes before the arc of the swing slowed enough that the candle would ignite the balloon. The balloon ignites. The accelerant is spread evenly across all surfaces and the balloon, string and candle disappear in the fire. It was like the entire interior of the structure caught fire at the same time, with no trace as to how. He said it was damn near the perfect crime. Until some cop happens to notice a car parked in a field a mile away and thinks to jot down the license plate number. Edit, we need you Mythbusters. Should be a fun experiment with water already. I'm not sure I understand how you swing a balloon so that a candle 10 meters below will ignite it after 20 plus minutes. Edit, I misunderstood. The candle is on the ground and the balloon is right above it when at the bottom of the arc. It is still very unlikely to me that the balloon would swing for 20 plus minutes. Maybe around a minute maximum. But anyway, what was his point with this MO? If you're deranged enough to burn people places down, why do you care about leaving little traces of the ingestion method? Isn't it better to change MO on a regular basis? Even if they leave evidence, the balloon is close to the candle. It just settings like a pendulum so that the fire doesn't have time to burn through it. I was an MP at Fort Carson. The young man was in the service for 2 years before a dishonorable discharge sending him back home to Pennsylvania. When he got home he used his uniform to get discounts and praise. One day he decided to hop on a plane to Colorado. He arrives in full uniform but with lieutenant rank on. Gets off the plane and uses the government transportation to get on base. He doesn't have an ID, but he is an officer, so they let him on. Then he stayed at the impressing barracks without paperwork because hell. He is an officer. Stays there for weeks. He goes walking to the PX and comes across a woman with a flat tire. He helps her change it out and she invites him over for dinner. There he meets her husband and their kids, then convinces them that he is waiting for housing and they let him live with them for a month. He cleans the house and babysits the kids. One time he went to this guy's unit and chewed a supply sergeant out to help the guy he was living with. The only reason this came to light is because of one phone call he made to his mother from the in-processing barracks. She became worried about him and called them. His mother let the people know he was not in the military. After that the search began. I was in MPI and got to pick him up. He gave me a straightforward statement and was genuinely nice. I just remember sitting on the office couch with him watching TV waiting for him to get transferred from my custody. I told him that I was genuinely impressed and that after whatever happens to him happens, that he could get it together and do well. He wasn't the brightest kid, but damn he had balls. I guess that is what it really takes. r/Aktlikiabalang. Once had a guy who shoplifted on an industrial scale. He stole hundreds and sometimes thousands of pounds worth of merchandise from a particular well-known high street clothing store. Every day, he'd go to different branches all over the country, UK obviously. He spoke nicely and was smartly dressed. He just used to fill up bags with high-value products and walk out. He had a warehouse-type unit somewhere. Police never found it with his own till because he would generate till receipts for these items and go back to return them at a different branch and get cash refunds. He was at it for years, made enough to put his kids through private school. When he got caught he was jailed for about a year. Our shoplifting sentencing guidelines are absurdly low. When he came out he got back on it. Police still couldn't find his base. He was being investigated and was on bail. One occasion when he answered his bail at the police station, the police had a 6-man surveillance team ready to tail him and track down the warehouse he was using. He lost them within 2 minutes of leaving the station. When he came for trial, based on the CCTV evidence we had from the various shops, the case got thrown out. The footage wasn't good enough to make out his features exactly, and the officer who purported to identify him hadn't followed procedures. After he was thus acquitted, he was due to be investigated for some other matters, but he gave the police and security the slip from the court before he could be arrested. Even I was impressed, and I was prosecuting him. Lost his tail in 2 minutes. Who did you say he was? Jason Bourne. Not even Jason Bourne is that effective. They see him on camera all the time. Had a guy, when I first started, would twist locks. The art of twisting a lock works mainly in businesses that secure their double front doors using a deadbolt style lock. He would use a tool to twist this lock and in turn open the doors. Guy probably got away with 25 businesses before he was finally busted. He later said his style of breaking and entering worked so well because the alarm systems have a set delay when opening a business. Say 30 seconds. Given the glass wasn't broke or large movements were observed by the system, it would act as if the store were opening and give the employee time to reset the alarm. Those 30s were plenty for him to get in, get to the register, and leave. This awoken some old stuff from a past life. Hopefully this is useful for some business owners. The disarm delay he mentioned is important. Getting in without triggering an immediate alarm isn't often difficult. Once you're in, what makes the difference between a quick grab like mentioned above and having several minutes is the audible alarm. Not going to go into timing on when alarm companies register a call with the PD, because that's not important. If you're in a place and the installed siren goes off, you've got to get out. A horn that's easy to locate and can be disconnected, or filled with a quick shot of spray foam buys you easily 4x the time. Lesson: put your keypad near the door. Keep your disarm delay low. Put your siren or sirens high and not all in obvious places. If you're in a building that uses glass doors, make sure the main lock isn't a simple deadbolt style. You'd be amazed how much glass will flex. Make sure you have motion sensors above the ceiling, especially places that use drop ceilings. This is especially important in business complexes and office buildings that have various tenant types. Lesson: don't rely on adjacent security measures. You think that non-profit next door has the budget you do for security? You think a wall separates you? Pop your head up in the ceiling and take a look around. Edit RIP my inbox. No, I'm not involved with anything related and haven't been for a very long time. However, I consider this field one of the areas of my expertise. I used to work for AT&T and they had a string of break-ins at some of the regional stores at night. Dudes would enter through the hitty bodegas next door and access the drop ceiling to get into the AT&T backrooms where they kept their money drops and all the phones. They got caught, and it turned out the thieves worked for the company, so had insight as to how security in the safes worked. Never found out how much they had stolen before getting caught, but my store usually had at least $20k in cash every day, so I imagine it was quite a bit. We get a call reporting that the phone system of major UK bank has been hacked and that the caller has had several £1,000s stolen from their account as a result. Seems unlikely, but officers went round to see what had happened. Obviously the bank's system was fine, but scammers had done something fairly clever. Turns out that there is a way in the UK of keeping a phone line open when only the recipient hangs up. The scammers called the victim and pretended to be from the bank before asking for account details. Victim was suspicious, so hung up and called the bank back at their real telephone number. However, the scammers held the line open and played a dial tone down the line, so the victim thought that she was making a new call. Then they played a ring sample before a new scammer answered the call and took the details pretending to be the bank. I've heard of it a few times since in the press, but the first time I came across it was on duty and no one had any idea what was going on. A lot of times people don't listen before dialing anymore, especially if their phone is one where you put the number in before pressing green call button. You can always hold the line open on landlines in UK this way, which is why it is sensible to call verification numbers on your mobile while the company is still on the phone. This is a symptom of the old parts phone systems, landlines. They won't close the circuit until both parties hang up. This works in the USA too. Pro tip. You can dial 958 on most landlines in the USA and an automated voice will respond with the number you are dialing from. Which wouldn't work if someone on the other end is trying to hold the circuit open. No criminal skill per SE, but I thought I'd contribute this story as it was quite impressive. Used to work with law enforcement, and during a Friday night a guy on PCP managed to shut down a major roadway during a foot pursuit. This guy ended up taking several shots from a 9mm and a shotgun shell, and then wriggled out of the grasp of several officers trying to subdue him, and get into a police car and drive off with it. He only managed to get about 10 feet before crashing into a cement barrier and knocking himself unconscious. The guy ended up living too. PCP is a hell of a drug. And a shotgun shell. Is this guy Wolverine gone wrong? Or something? PCP will do that. It basically makes you ignore pain. Apparently. Not a cop. Nor the criminal. But in the Blue Mountains of NSW, Australia, my now deceased uncle went on a string of armed robberies where he would run into a store with a gun. Then shove the attendant against the wall and superglue their hands to the wall before stealing the money in the cash register. He had no intentions of using the gun. And it was actually never loaded. He just thought it would be funny to glue people to the wall and steal their hit. Thought it would be funny to glue people to the wall and steal their hit. This is fantastically Australian. Strayer M8. Criminal here. That was complimented by police officers on my elusiveness. I was 13.0 and took my dad's truck out for a joyride while my parents were out of town for the night. I wasn't so good at driving stick and got pulled over. I ran for it. I hid in a field for a half hour or so while watching more and more police show up to investigate. When I heard the dogs, I knew it was my time to make it or break it. So I ran. And boy did I run. I made it to a road and hopped a fence into someone's yard. And hopped a few more fences. I was, and still am, very athletic. Lost the dogs, but the cruisers were everywhere. I made my way to my house and there were cops on every corner of the street. But a bit of stealthy fence hopping, and I was at my basement window and I crawled in. With the cops literally outside my house. I gathered my things in the dark, and was ready to head off to my buddy's place. But I was surrounded. 13-yo. Dog gave the police a very entertaining chase. And they even said so. I felt so complimented that they enjoyed the chase. Too. They also said I had no chance of getting away. I remember eating a Giappa fruit and trying to play it cool while they were questioning me. Did they come up to the window and actually see you? Seems like you should have just been able to act like it wasn't you fairly easily. Yeah, really. Once you made it home, you should have just ran to your room. Answered the door like what? Someone stole my dad's truck? I was playing PlayStation. Not an officer, but I remember a Forensic Files episode I saw once that impressed me. A doctor named John Skneberger drugged his patient and sexually assaulted her during a visit or procedure. When she accused him of it, after having a rape kit done, he willingly gave a blood sample and the results came back as not a match. He did the test twice, but the second time he insisted they take it from a particular part of his arm and the blood came out old. It turned out that he had a tube of another patient's blood sample implanted in his arm, so that he would get away with it. He's a sick bastard, but that was pretty ducking clever. It's also referenced in an episode of Law and Order SVU. Season 5, Episode 5. Serendipity. One of their best in the early seasons. Good storyline with a classic twist. Old school SVU. I was literally watching season 5 episode 4 as I read this, so now I know what happens in the next episode. Damn it. Smartest criminal. Suspect would go door to door saying he was with Publishers Clearinghouse. He would tell people they were one of several finalists. He then explained he would need their name, date of birth, and social security number to verify who they were. After that, he would ask what hours they weren't home, so they could ensure if the victim won the prize, they would be home. Naturally, he would break into their homes when they weren't home and steal all their valuables. To top it off, He would steal their identity and open a bunch of credit card/payday loans in their names afterwards. After over 50 cases, I finally caught the guy. Made off with over $500,000 in 3 months before he was caught. Dumbest criminal. Suspect was robbing a gas station late at night. Suspect pointed a gun at the cashier demanding money. The cashier was surrounded by plexiglass all around. Cashier refused to give suspect the money and hit the panic alarm, which locked the door. Suspect was angry and fired a shot at the cashier. The bullet ricocheted off the plexiglass and struck him in the forehead. The bullet knocked him unconscious, but didn't penetrate the skull. As I arrived, the bullet was still protruding from his forehead, and he was knocked out. He got 99 years for his stupidity. The best part was the cash register only had $60 in it. Jesus Christ. You know I'm a finalist. But you need me to give you my name? Not hard to blag. Really? I just need you to confirm your full name to ensure I'm speaking to the right person. People have tried claiming they're someone they're not when we made a mistake and got the wrong house in the past. So we confirm the name first now. Something like that. Anyway,